In this video, I will demo how to create a command line based Java application and convert it into a primitive workflow in the view system. First, let's go ahead and create a command line based application. I use Eclipse to create a new Java project. I'm going to name it as pw underscore addition, which is going to add two numbers and print the output in command line. After creating the project, go ahead and create a new class. And let's name it as pw underscore addition. So you can see the code here in the class file. I have a method called add, which is going to add the two numbers and return an output. And then the input argument that comes from the command line is put into this variable arg1 and arg2. Then it's passed to the method add. And the addition of these two numbers, which is provided by the user, is going to be returned as an output and displayed in the command line. So let's go ahead and say run as Java application. So it's going to throw an error because we did not provide any command line argument. So what I do is, like, I right click on the project and export a runnable jar file, which is Java version of the executable. So after entering the name for the jar file, just click on the finish button. So let's try to run the jar file from command line. So I open up terminal, and basically the command to execute a jar file is java-jar pw underscore. So you need to provide two input arguments. So let's say we want to add two numbers, 2 and 4. So the output is returned 6. Now that we have this working version of the Java code and the runnable jar file, we can upload this into our view server and convert it into a primitive workflow. So I opened the view system. I'm going to click on the add button on the right side corner. Select command line, create. And the workflow name should be the same name that you used for your jar file name. So if you remember, we used pw underscore addition dot jar, so we use the same name while creating the workflow. And then to enter the input port and output port for the primitive workflow, there is a hint. So when you mouse over the hint, you could see the formatting. So let's go ahead and enter the port ID, which is I1, port name, port type, and a short description. And as we have two input arguments for our jar file, we enter two input ports. As we have only one output returned as a through the command line, we type in only one output port. Click on the choose file and select the jar file that you exported. Once you selected the file, click on the upload button. After you're done with this, just go ahead and click on the register button. Close this window. So do a refresh on your screen. So you should see the new primitive workflow inside the command line, which is inside the task-based workflows. So go ahead and drag and drop the primitive workflow addition into the design panel. And you can connect arbitrary input data to this primitive workflow. So what's so nice about this primitive workflow is it is interoperable with other types of workflows, such as built-in workflows. So if I go ahead and drag and drop a multiply workflow into the design panel, I connect the output of the primitive workflow to the input of multiply. And because multiply takes in two input, I drag and drop another input data into the design panel and connect it together. Okay, so as you can see from this workflow composition, there is two output stub dragged and dropped into the design panel. And what that means is the output of the primitive workflow addition is displayed in the output stub output dp0, and the output of multiply is displayed in output dp1. So let's go ahead and save this workflow. And let's run this workflow. So you can see this already, the primitive workflow addition, which is a command line based workflow. What it does is it takes in the input arguments, input data 3 and 5, and convert it into an input argument for the primitive workflow to execute. And the output of that's returned in the command line, which is 8, is binded to an output stub. And also the output 8 is passed in as an input to the multiply built-in workflow in this case, and which also accepts one more input, 3, and it's multiplied together to produce output 24. Thank you for watching this video.